Welcome to Commander Pop Culture, a place to gather magical information with some laughs, might I add. Hello everyone, if you're here then you want to build Voja, Jaws of the Conclave, and hopefully I got a list for you. Let's take a look at it. I think I'll talk about the synergy pieces over like the card advantage and the removal packages, unless it also lends itself to the synergy, and I won't talk about the lands because most of them are just for fixing your mana anyways. The only thing I have to say that's special about that is all my cards are $5 or less. Can you dig it? So I do that so it's more affordable to all of you. The total deck price comes to $151, so it's still a little pricey. I am pretty sure you have a lot of these cards already. They're staples in my book, and I play them all the time, even in my expensive decks. So I don't feel like I'm sacrificing a whole lot of power. You as a player, if you don't have these, I highly recommend you get them because you'll reuse them a lot. All my card picks are like personal recommendations. I think bottom line, like the underlying theme of every Commander game is you're trying to win. It doesn't have to represent everything in a game of Magic. There's a lot of camaraderie and like social aspects to playing in paper that I love. That to me takes more priority, especially when I'm with friends. Like I said, there is a drive to win, and that spirit of competition amongst my friends is appreciated. But anyways, we're going to talk about the deck now. I'm sorry, but kind of went off on a little tangent. So you care about elves and you care about wolves. The wolves draw you a ton of cards while the elves grow your board to immense sizes. I recommend you focus on elves because wolves are not that powerful of a creature type. There's only a handful of wolf synergy cards that are worth you playing, and I have those specifically in here. They just generate a ton. It makes it so I don't have to play the crappy commons and uncommons that are wolves in Magic's history. I'll get to those fat triggers another means, I guess you could say. But the creature package, got Beast Whisperer, Birds of Paradise for fixing, Devoted Druid, Dwynen's Elite. Another subject matter that I want to talk about the elves is that you're trying to make as many as possible. You want to put as many elves into play per mana as you can. If you could one for one put an elf into play per one mana you spend, that is exactly where you want to be, because you want to have the widest board possible before you get to Voja's trigger. Something I've noticed is that because you're playing a lot of the cheap elves that are mana dorks, there is some clunkiness because there is summoning sickness associated with those creatures. It forces you to play this like a 60 card burn deck. You have to think 2 turns in advance of how you want things to unfold. If you don't have a mind for that, then this might not be the deck for you. I found myself in the playtesting of this is that I was thinking 2 turns ahead pretty constantly, and came to the conclusion it's because of your mana ramp package. I didn't purposely include a lot of the lords. I only include the ones that offered something quite significant to the table, like generating an absurd amount of mana like Elvish Archdruid does. I don't necessarily care that it gives everything +1/+1. I mean, all the power is gonna be coming from Voja, so like, what do you really need? An elf lord? Elvish Warmaster puts a body into play every time another elf comes in. Faldarn, this is one of your wolf synergy pieces I was mentioning. Whenever you cast a spell from exile, you make a 2/2 wolf. You can discard a card from hand to exile a top card of your library. You may play it that turn. When you have this in play, make sure you save your land drop for last, because if you hit a land off the top of your library and you already played a land for turn, you'll miss out on not only a land, but also a wolf token. Don't do it. Exercise some patience and think about your turn before you go into it. The best time to think about your turns is on the other 3 people's turns. Like, there should be no reason why you get to your turn and it takes you more than 2 minutes to do it from start to finish, even if it's complicated. If you spend time thinking about your turn on everyone else's, I guarantee you'll be consistently the fastest player, because most people don't, especially in Commander, because Commander attracts a casual player base. I'm not trying to knock on you too hard, but they don't think about those kinds of things typically, and why should they? They're just there to have fun. Guardian of Faith, because you are a creature strategy, protecting your board is quite paramount. The biggest crux to your game plan is board wipes. Guardian of Faith is one of the best because it phases out your entire board, and it can dodge and counter Cyclonic Rift because it'll bounce the Guardian of Faith back to your hand, and you'll have it in hand for the next time they try casting Cyclonic Rift again, because no one casts Cyclonic Rift just one goddamn time. You have to be ready for that kind of crap. Heritage Druid just generates an absurd amount of mana. Furious Perfect, this is a lord that puts in more bodies. I like it. Jetmir for additional finisher power. I don't know if you really need it, but in case you can't get the job done with Voja, give all your stuff Trample and Double Strike and Vigilance. And then you'll probably have enough evasion to finish it the turn you play it. Draga Tree Speaker, Draga Warcaller. Honestly, you just want every 1-drop you can get. It's just efficient, and you want a wide board. Guessing Cage Breakers, this is another wolf synergy. Whenever it attacks, you get to create a 2/2 wolf that's attacking for each creature card in your graveyard. You're playing 32 creatures, you're bound to have at least 2+ in your graveyard, and that's already a lot of value. Since this is an attack trigger, you can actually stack Voja and Guessing Cage Breakers in a way that you'll put the tokens in first, and then you get to draw cards off of Voja. You just have to verbalize that and be conscientious about how you layer your triggers. Because if you're playing with a bunch of hardcore players, they're going to ask you and be kind of angle shooting you. Just say, I'm putting Voja on the stack first and Kessig after, because it resolves on a top-down fashion. The Kessig trigger will resolve, and then the Voja happens after. Leaf Crown, it's a lord that also draws perfect in this deck. Lissalana puts in more elves per elf you cast. It's basically a more cracked out version of the 2-drop we talked about earlier, because the 2-drop I mentioned beforehand only happens once a turn. Mirror Entity, this is another one of your wolf synergy pieces, because you could turn all your creatures into all creature types, i.e. elves and wolves. When you get this and Maskwood Nexus, blast off, you just basically draw your deck, put all the counters on everything. I'd be surprised if you didn't just kill someone outright the turn that these come down and you go to combat. Or just gain so much value that there's nothing your opponents can do to catch up to you. Even if they board wiped, you'd probably have enough cards in hand to rebuild. Or Frostfang, it's a creature strategy. Drawing a lot of cards for your creatures attacking are great. It also gives your creatures death touch, so like if they're trying to deny you triggers of drawing, they're at least trading off creatures. That's why O-Rang's so good. I would include the Squirrel, but he's outside of my budget, so sorry folks. Priest of Titanium, another payoff for having a lot of elves. You always choose elf with Realm Walker because your bulk of your creature package are elves, and that's why it's in here. Rise, not only will you have the opportunity to be copying your elf tokens, but since I have the wolf synergy or the wolf token cards, you could copy those as well with its 6-mana ability. Sovereign Canal. In case your Voja trigger wasn't enough, you could double the counters again to layer your triggers correctly. In this scenario, you want to put Sovereign on first, put the Voja on after. Voja will resolve, you put all of the counters on, and then Sovereign will double everything. When I featured it on my channel, I got a Gyre Sage up to 73 power. It was super exciting and funny. Funnest decks I built this year, so if you love the sound of that, go check that out after you watch this, and I guarantee you'll have a good time. Wirewood Chandler, another big mana payoff. Wolverine Riders, you put an elf token into play on everybody's upkeep. Creeping Renaissance, I love tribal decks that have green in them because I get to play this. It basically helps you deal with the crux of board wipes. And not only do you get to do it once, but you can do it twice. The flashback is quite nice. It may seem expensive, but when the game goes along after a couple of board wipes, you'll have it. Cut a Deal is card advantage, but I prefer the Exile package because it'll combo with Faldorn. You'll get to make 2/2 wolves off of these, and you have some of my all-time favorite card advantage cards in the game because you're Naya colors. You have Escape the Wilds, and then you have Showdown of the Skalds. They're just big, fat spells that exile a ton of stuff.
My.
Ren's Resolve, Reckless Impulse, same stories. Hunting Triad, this puts in 3 elves into play for 4 mana. It's just a dense card, and I have a couple of these. Elvish Promenade puts a bunch of elves into play per elf you already have. That's a pretty big spell if in the right scenarios. It might actually get people killed. If you have a big board already, play this main phase 1, make your board even bigger. I don't know how many counters you'll be dumping on your creatures, but I imagine creatures with greater than 10 power in play. Boros Charm protects your board, gives your board indestructible at instant speed. and then on occasion you give something double strike, which might actually be more significant in this deck because your creatures get insanely big, insanely fast, and if someone doesn't block the right creature, you could kill them with this. Oh, an Ambush puts a bunch of elves in play. Gilt Leaf Ambush, same story. Predator's Howl, you never play this card unless you could pull off its Morbid. Since it's an instant, you can pull it off pretty consistently. Once you have Morbid, you put 3 2/2 wolf creatures into play. Another tutor. I love cards that neuter people's commanders. My go-tos are usually Darksteel Mutation and Song of the Dryads because they're difficult to remove post them entering the battlefield. I don't like Kenra's Transformation as much. It's nice in that it cantrips off of itself, and that'd be worth you playing alone. It can block and die to relatively anything, especially your deck since you're going to be making a lot of biggins and swinging with them. Growing Rites of Itlimoc is a bit of a no-brainer. You're running 32 creatures, so you'll get a good ETB trigger off this, and flipping it is not that hard. If you don't know what it does on its backside, it's a fair Gaia's Cradle, essentially. Feed the Pack is another wolf synergy piece. At end step, you get the second non-token creature, and then you create X 2/2 wolves. That's pretty exciting, especially post a Voja trigger. You'll probably have a non-token elf that's pretty big to sack to this and just make a ton of wolves. Go to next turn and have a lot of cards to draw. I didn't have to play a bunch of Chromia Wolf cards to get a bunch into play, so that's why you have it in the deck. Howling Moon, you don't play it for the top half, you play it for the bottom half. Whenever our opponent casts their second spell each turn, you put a 2/2 Wolf into play. That will happen quite often. EDH is about who can see the most cards and who can play the most cards, which means you're going to hit that 2 cast trigger all the time. And probably from everybody, every revolution of the table until they have no cards in hand, but since drawing is king, I highly doubt you'll have a revolution of the table. People will be like, I'm going to avoid giving you wolves. If they do that, then it's good for you because they're hindering their own game, so you could excel past them. They can't keep up with you if you're the only one playing multiple spells a turn and they're the ones not. And that's the deck, everybody. So I hope you all subscribe if you liked what you saw. I hope you have a great day. I'm going to be building the Izoni deck next and talking about that for the channel. If you want to influence the order that I play these decks, go to my community tab and take a vote, and you can see the commander you like the most maybe a little bit earlier depending on how the votes shake out. Right now I think it's a close neck and neck race between Voja and the Massacre Girl. It's an exciting time. Looking forward to February 9th when this set comes out. Everyone take care now. Have a great night. Bye.